Good evening, good people of the internet. No, the stream will start. I'm not cancelling it just now, Michael. Hi there, Michael and John. It seems I'm the only one today, which is all good and well, not a real issue. Now, today I wanted to talk about COVID because, let's be honest, we don't get bombarded with that bullshit anyway. But I wanted to talk about it slightly different. Now, obviously, I have information to prove that we've been lied to by the government. Um, but there is something else, something that we've mentioned in the past. The lockdown is actually hurting our society. And now there is an article from, not an article, yeah, an article from a few scientists at the Erasmus University in Rotterdam. Now, obviously, the department is of technology and operations management, but I'd expect management to know more about it than, just about anything, because we are talking about human resource. But before I'll start into those, I have something else for you to share. So I'm going to see if I can get the whole bloody thingy-mabob to do what I want it to do. And there we go. 1 second. I'm really not good at this. Come on, you. I should have done this sooner. I'm sorry. I'm really bad at preparing this stuff. But here goes. There is this article, and it's been an old article because we're talking about 13 May. How UNICEF warns the lockdown could kill more than COVID, as a model predicted 1.2 million child deaths. Now, I'm not a big fan of models because, let's be honest, one of the models predicting the death of COVID said that there would be 2 million deaths in the UK alone. Considering that the UK has downscaled its death count by 50,000, I think it's going to take some time for us to get to 2 million. But I think, given enough time, a few decades, we might reach the 2 million. Yeah, sure, because it seems that this is a recurring illness. And hi there, laughing millennial. And hi there, Ludicrous. And hi there, Michael. And hi there, John. Okay, so first we're going to go to this one. And this is an article by The Telegraph. And this is done by UNICEF at the time, based on health issues in developing countries. Because obviously, nobody cares about what goes on in Western world countries. No, we have to always care about... It doesn't make sense. I'll try not to pretend that it makes sense, but somehow we are okay to talk about how this destroys the lives of people in faraway countries, but we are not okay to talk about how it destroys the lives in our own country. Doesn't make sense to me. But then again, now one of the risks that they saw was that children dying from pneumonia, malaria or diarrhea because they didn't get the right help because of corona. Now this is something we saw in Europe as well. People, and in America, people being sent away from the hospital because, yes, your illness isn't as life-threatening as COVID is. Yeah, but I just had a massive heart attack and coronary failure. Yeah, but COVID is worse. So you would be sent home to die of a heart attack. And I may sound like it's a sick joke. The worst part is, it's not a sick joke. Shit like this actually happened. People that were diagnosed with cancer well in advance, so the operation could have saved their life, but because of COVID, those operations never happened because, well, they're not necessary. It's just to prevent further damage. Yeah, but once that further damage was done, there was no preventing it anymore, and there was no saving someone. People died because of the lockdowns and the way hospitals were forced to look at corona only. But if we go look at the article, and I'm going to open it. Come on. I should have done better. I'm sorry, guys. I just old man and all that. It doesn't do what I want it to do. There we go. For the greater good, the devastating rippling effect of the COVID-19 crisis. Now I'm going to start with the abstract. Why not? As the crisis around COVID evolves, it becomes clear that there are numerous negative side effects of the lockdown strategies implemented by many countries. And this is written in the Netherlands. And now there are people in the Netherlands saying, yeah, but we didn't do any lockdown. Yeah, but we did though, didn't we? Lots of places are locked down. You can't go to the bars. You have to be careful to stay on distance. When you go to the shop, there have been shops closed because they didn't force their patrons to wear masks. I'm not kidding you. But hey, you know, masks saves lives. It's almost like Black Lives Matter. If you repeat it often enough, people will start believing it. Anyway, currently, more evidence becomes available that the lockdown may have more negative effects than positive effects. For instance, many measures taken in a lockdown aimed at protecting human life may compromise the immune system and purpose in life, especially of vulnerable groups. This leads to a paradoxical situation of compromising the immune system and physical and mental health of many people, including the ones we aim to protect. Also, it is expected that hundreds of millions of people will die from hunger in the coming years. Sorry, I'm going to speed it up a bit. Why? Well, because we don't really do the farming bit the way we should, because this is something that happened in America. They can't transport the food from the farms to the warehouses because of COVID. Now, I'm not going to read the rest of it. A link has been provided, and considering people are basically telling me that they want to go to the Badger stream in a moment, fair enough. This is also an interesting phrase. A sad soul can kill you quicker than a germ. And this is something that's really interesting, because years ago it's already been proven that when old people live in a retirement home, if they don't have regular visits from their family, they will die faster. That's not a joke. I mean, being unhappy, being sad, actually increases your rate of death by several years even. Quite sickening if you think of it. And then what do we do to stop the COVID spread? Well, we tell people that they can't visit their old folks in homes, who then die alone. Now this does something obviously to the ones that died because they're dead. What do you think it does to the families of these people? Imagine, if you will, you had to watch a parent die. Well, you didn't watch him die because you weren't allowed to be close to him. Something that you would have wanted. Who is joining me? Hey, Paulo.
Hi.
Welcome, mate.
Yeah, sorry for barging in like this.
Hey,
but
welcome.
You didn't have anybody else, so.
No, well, yeah. That's all right. I mean, people are welcome to join, and if they didn't want to join, I thought, you know what? I'll speed through it.
Mm-hmm. I thought I had a couple of problems that emerged out of the COVID pandemic, because in July in Portugal we had a rise in deaths of 26% compared to last year.
Mm-hmm.
And only 1.5% of those are because of COVID.
Yeah.
People are just not going to the doctor if they have health problems. They're not going to the doctor. Some of them because they're afraid that they're going to catch some things. There are people who are actually in a panic, even to this day. But if you use our National Health Service and you don't have COVID, they're more likely to send you away because they're busy treating the thing that is actually not a problem.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and that's
yeah,
something that actually
people with
happened.
cancer aren't getting treatment.
Yeah, I did mention that earlier, but yeah, that's actually a thing, and it's sickening, and we pretend that this is not the case, but no, we have to be careful for an illness with an IFR rating, an infection fatality rating of around 0.2 to 0.4. Now, the average yearly flu scores around 0.2. There are flus that score around 0.1, but we've seen flus in the last decade that score around 0.8, which is far worse than corona. I think 2018 was a particularly nasty flu bug as well. I think in the Netherlands there were about 10,000 people died, which is almost twice as much as corona has killed. And the worst part is the corona deaths have been proven to be inflated. Nearly
Yes.
all countries in the Western world have said, no, if you die with corona, we count it as dying from corona. The UK has already said, yeah, you know what, our fatality number, yeah, just downgrade it by 50,000. 50,000. Bloody hell. I do have an article on that as well. I wanted to talk from the Swiss. What are they called? I'm sorry. I'm going to share the Hangout screen with you too, mate, so you can see what I'm doing. But this is from scrolling to the top. The Swiss policy research, and I'm pretty sure that Michael knows better what that means. To me, it doesn't mean much. I'll not lie, but it seems official, so why not? They are official. I've used their sources in the past. And hi there, William. Let me see if I can share the screen with you so that you can see what I'm seeing. I'm so happy with this. Here we go. Oh, and it's blinky, blinky, blinky again. Yeah, this is not really working, is it, Paolo?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Jesus. Yeah. Okay. That's better. Oops. No, I'm not seeing anything.
Okay, you want me to put it back because I turned it off. People can read the first bit. I'm sorry, it's all rather messy, but that's also because I had a terrible night's sleep. Is this really better?
Yeah, it's still blinking.
Yeah, I can't stop it to blink. Not a clue why it's blinking.
Research studies on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Swiss Policy Research is a private group investigating the corona reports linked to the source of the news media and quoting them correctly. Modwayne, yeah, sure. It's not an official Swiss department or anything alike. No, but they seem to be trustworthy in their reporting, are they not, Michael? I thought they were. I used them as a reliable source because I remember having used them somewhere before. Not on COVID, on something else. I can't remember. And yeah, hi there, William. I'm not sure if I already said hi, but might as well say it again. And they are trustworthy. Okay, now then we're talking about the immunological studies, which indicates that serological antibody studies, which measure antibodies in the blood, and typically found populations-based IFR values between 0.1 and 0.5. IFR, sorry, is infection fatality rate. So worst case scenario, about 0.5% of the people infected die. Now the question is, do they die from, how do you call it? Do they die from COVID or do they die from something else? But they have COVID, they die. If we then look down, coronavirus like 5 times more common and less deadly than assumed. So one of the reasons the IFR number is so incredibly low is because more people get sick than were initially. Actually, that's not really true, because initially they said everyone would get sick and everyone would die. Then only a handful of people died, therefore not a lot of people were sick. And now we're testing everyone, so we're noticing that, well, there are more people sick than we initially said. Therefore, the IFR rating is going down. If you want to jump in, by the way, Paolo, by all means, go ahead, mate.
I find a place that that's reproducing some parts of that study on the Alliance for Natural Health International website. I usually don't like websites with this name because I'm always afraid they're homeopaths or something.
Mm-hmm.
But they're reproducing the content, so yeah. One part here that they're mentioning, which is interesting, is that in many countries, up to 2/3 of all extra deaths occurred in nursing homes, which do not benefit from a general lockdown. Moreover, in many cases, it is not clear whether these people really died from COVID-19 or from weeks of extreme stress and isolation.
Yeah, that I did mention that in the beginning.
Local epidemics in nursing homes, and we're talking about places. We have a lot of illegal nursing homes in Portugal. So not only are these people not getting proper regular care for their actual illnesses, they're stuck in rooms which may be damp or have insects. So yeah, they're very likely to die just from being there. And if this is affecting older people, which are already under severe stress, both emotional and from their environment, yeah, this is becoming very, very inflated.
Yeah, and this is the article I started with earlier, that the death from non-COVID causes, but COVID related, will outnumber the death of COVID by, well, quite a number.
I'm also worried about the fact that they're still trying to push the idea that the children are going to kill us all. That the children are infection carriers, and they're still trying to convince parents not to let their children out, otherwise their kids are going to kill the grandparents.
Which is most likely untrue.
Yes, and all the mainstream media are pushing it.
Yeah.
Let's not have the kids go back to school. Let's not have the kids go back to doing physical exercise. Right. One ridiculous thing. They forbade. There are prohibitions on certain sports being considered contact sports. So children who are practicing rugby, they're not allowed. Soccer, they're allowed as long as they don't come into contact with each other, which is strange. Another one that was strange, they're not allowed to do gymnastics, which I really don't get it.
Well, gymnastics I can somewhat understand. I don't agree, but I can somewhat understand because it's indoors.
In a gymnasium.
Still, it's indoors, and we know that aerosols hang around indoors. They do. You need very good ventilation to clean aerosols from indoors settings. Guess what? You can get that very good ventilation. So it's not an issue that can't be addressed. But yeah, people pretend that it's a big deal. Now, outdoors, we know that the major source of infection is aerosols. This has been proven time and again. Outdoors, aerosols are absolutely not a big... Well, that's not true. Outdoors, aerosols may be a big problem in the middle of a busy stadium. So if there's hundreds of people around you, thousands of people around you, aerosols may be a problem in a stadium, not in the open, because in the open the wind has free play. And the wind will then move the aerosols away from people in no time flat. But in stadiums, the wind doesn't move around as easily. So the air could linger. Freedom for Moldova. I have the feeling that that's a movie reference. I can't remember that one. Wasn't that something to do with the Avenger movies, William?
No, Moldova is the Romanian part of the Soviet Union.
Oh, right, okay. See, I don't know everything. I've just proven that I don't know everything.
I didn't know there were problems with Moldova right now. Obviously, the Belarus situation is on the news every day.
Yeah.
But it's important to keep some political stability, some sort of political stability in the old Soviet republics, because it seems that the Tsar Vladimir is gobbling up territory.
I believe your word. I really do. It's an issue anyway. But this is true in just about every country now, because of the lockdown thing. Civil unrest is far worse. The biggest protest in the whole history. 3 people, 4 people. John, do not be nasty. Anyway, back to the story at hand. If we look at the IFR rating, and I really like this, antibody seroprevalence studies point certain things out, and I'm going to. Links are provided of these 2 articles, so you can find them and you can check them yourself. But if we look at places without a collapse of health and elderly care, so countries that basically kept doing what they know to do, in those countries we see that the IFR rating is low. Now Africa is lower than Europe, India is lower than Europe, and there are people who claim that it's lower because in these countries hydrochloroquine or any form of quinine is being used already, because in these countries there's a higher risk, for example, of malaria. And the thing that protects you from malaria is also the thing that protects you from SARS-CoV-2.
Yeah.
Once you're sick, it might not be as good a thing, but in early stages of the sickness, and when you're not sick at all, it actually seemed to have protected people. So yeah, what makes that point? Well, we can see that, for example, in places like India and Africa, it's pretty low. And remember how bad people told you it was in Iran? Still, they only come at an IFR rating of about 0.12%. So it's almost not there. Now, what are the places with the highest IFR ratings? Well, if we look at it, and the highest is still below 0.5%, even though the World Health Organization initially put the IFR rating at 3.5%, though now they are saying, well, probably 0.6%, and most countries are even half of that. I mean, look at that. I mean, Germany, this is out of the countries that did not have a collapse of health and elderly care, and out of these countries, Germany scores highest. But shown later, it's at 0.28, which is still highest out of this group, by the way. Now, if we look at places where the elder care collapsed, yeah, the numbers are going to be slightly different, or they're going to do it per country. If we look at Spain, the IFR rating for COVID confirmed death is almost 1%, but the higher number of deaths per month, per week, is about 1%. this is not because of COVID. The 1% excess death is not because of COVID. We do not know what caused these deaths, but we assume it's COVID. Because let's be honest, if you're driving your car and you hit a wall or something, it must have been COVID. And that might sound stupid, but again, cases like this have been reported on. Now, if you're younger than 50 years, even in Spain, where it went pretty bad, there's an IFR rating of 0.1%. And if you're below 40, that is even lower than that. I mean, we're talking about 3 promille. Is it promille? I think so. I don't know, 0.03%. It's very small. And Spain, I mean, we get told in all of Europe that, oh yeah, no, Spain, oh, so many deaths, so many deaths. Same for Italy, oh, so many deaths, oh, so many deaths. Yeah, well, if I keep telling you that 10 people died, and all you hear is how 10 people died, that those 10 people sound like a lot of death. It's terrible for those 10 people and their family. I'll not deny that. But how is it a lot of death?
Yes, you'll notice that the mainstream media are terrible at math because they keep telling us that the countries with the highest death rates are the United States and Brazil.
Yeah.
Which is patently ridiculous. Of course, they have more deaths, they have more population.
Yeah, indeed.
I mean, nobody's actually talking about the country with the highest death rate per million people in Europe, which is San Marino.
Yeah.
but again, it's San Marino.
I mean, there have countries with more deaths than San Marino has inhabitants.
Yes.
But another problem, I mean, in all fairness, one of the main issues San Marino has, because a lot of people that live there are old people living in the sun retiring.
Yes.
And we know
people in working age who are from San Marino are probably living in Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is something that in Northern Italy, and Northern Italy, I've mentioned this in one of my videos a long time ago. Northern Italy has an air pollution problem. This has been known for at least 15 years. Airway-related deaths in these areas are far higher than anywhere else in Europe. Even anywhere else in Italy, because Northern Italy, the air is of atrocious quality. And even there, well, if you're below 70 years, you have an IFR rating of 0.43%. If you're below 50 years, you have an IFR rating of 0.01%. But hey, if you're older than 80, you have an IFR rating of 30%. But then again, people who are 80, if they go shopping and they go walk back home and they fall, that could be a lethal incident. How many people fall to their death whilst shopping, so basically walking on the sidewalk, that are younger than 40? I think those numbers are pretty much the same. If you're younger than 40 and you fall, no one's going to blink twice that you survived. It's going to be a real big exception to hear that you died from a fall whilst walking. But at the same time, how many of us know stories of old people that fell, broke something, and because of that they died? And none of us look, I mean, we feel it's terrible, but none of us are surprised because they were old. But somehow, because of COVID, being old means nothing anymore. It's terrible. I mean, it's terrible that 30% of 80 or older people died. Yes, it is. They're going to die anyway. Preferably they live forever, but no one lives forever. And let's be honest, 80 is pretty damn close to forever, isn't it? I don't know how many people plan to be older than 80. But we still have to see it happening. And in Italy they see the sickness, the COVID thingy, in a first phase and second phase. And in the first phase, a lot of people who were 80 died because they didn't know how to deal with it. And then in the second phase, they dropped that number from 30% to 8%. Now, okay, an infection fatality rate of 8% is still massive, but it's at least 3 times lower. And yes, John, I mean, old people die. I do hope your mum can live out a good life, but at the same time, at a certain point in time, you can understand them wanting to stop. Like George Floyd, Badges had a breaking news today. The autopsy report, he was short of a severe heart attack and on drugs. But they still blame the officers. Well, I mean, this is, in all fairness, Michael, this is already old news. I mean, this has been proven a few weeks ago that George Floyd did not die from the police, but he was already on his way to dying the moment the police started talking with him, or even before that, because the dude OD'd. Anyway, New York City. Now, New York City is an interesting story because New York City is, I think, well, it's less than a half. What was it? 2/5 of all the deaths in America were from New York City, something like that. New York City is a massive source of COVID death in America, and even in New York City, the overall infection rate fatality is less than 1%. And in New York City, the governor decided that it would be a good idea to keep the strain off the hospitals by placing sick people in old care home facilities. So putting sick people with the elderly. And if anything we could have learned from Italy, it's that the elderly are far more susceptible and far easier to die. And what does New York do? Oh yeah, let's put them together. You have to be careful. You're not allowed to go outside because you may make your parents sick, because you might spread the disease to your parents. But yeah, why the hell not? Let's put sick people in old folks' homes, because that won't spread the disease. See, I'm seriously wondering though if it's acceptable or allowed to start a court case against the politicians in our countries for the batshit crazy shit they've done to deal with this COVID nonsense. Now, in New York, about 52% of the COVID deaths are 75 or older. This is lower than in Europe. But yeah, one of the reasons was because people were sent to nursing homes. So you have sick people and you put them together with old people. What didn't you see, William? Didn't you see the Badger stream?
Yeah, they're not on yet. They're late.
Well, that's good because they're encroaching on my time slot. Well, there's nothing I can do about that. So yeah, if we look at this, oh no, this is also nice. Let's look at the UK. Remember the UK, where 2 million people would die even if we did social distancing? We're not reaching those 2 million. The IFR rating in the care homes is massive. But in the general population, it's pretty big too. Why? Because of the care homes. Because just like the United States, in the UK, they placed sick people with old people. And even at the time, everyone could have told you, actually, there were people that actually did tell them this is a really bad idea. And I don't get it. I mean, even now in Europe, they're talking about locking down society even further. What do you think, Paolo. I'm going to turn off the article.
There are some conspiracy theorists saying that this is on purpose to get rid of the elderly population because they're a drain on Social Security resources. I'm not sure that they're smart enough to be that evil. The example I gave a few moments ago about the sporting authorities not allowing children's sports to be held because of danger of spreading the pandemic. These guys have no idea what they're doing. It's really important that people understand this, because even in March and in April, I was questioning, why are people so eager to do what the government says when on normal circumstances everybody already agrees that the government made it either criminals or idiots, and now they want to obey the criminals and idiots.
Well, in all fairness, this is something that the Milgram experiment back in the 60s kind of tried to explain. Because in America, they made an experiment trying to prove that the Germans were particularly susceptible to authority. So what they did was they set up an experiment and they tested it with Americans, but they found that Americans themselves, even though they claim that they're very individuals, were already very susceptible to authority. People tend to listen to the leaders. Even if they disagree with the leaders, they tend to listen. You have to be really strong of mind to disagree with your leader and actually go against it. And this is not new. We knew this. This is something that the Milgram experiments shown in the 60s. There are so many social psychology studies I can mention that all boil down in what's going on with this whole COVID thing, the media thing, the government abusing its power thing, people being sheep and following along. It's all predictable. No, the Milgram experiment wasn't hard to replicate. The problem is that once someone knows about it, then yeah, it won't work. So the people taking part of the experiment have to be unaware that it's an experiment. Because once people know it's an experiment, it's not working. So it's not hard to replicate, but it's hard to find a way to replicate it. So you have to try something that no one thought about would be within the same mind frame. Funny enough, I have mentioned this a few times. There was a television program in the Netherlands. It was translated called Good News. The badger stream has been put back by 30 minutes. So you have another 20 minutes of my caustic comments. Thanks, John. So anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, this was a television program, There Will Be War, where they manipulated people, and the people, they didn't know it was part of an experiment. They didn't know any of this. These were normal people, and they manipulated them purely based on the information they were given. This whole program was based on the Robber Cave experiment by Mr. Sharif. And it was supposed to run for, I think, 6 or 7 shows. And after 4 shows, they stopped because they were actually trying to kill each other. And none of the things that happened were like, okay, you know what, attack him or attack that. No, it's small lies. Not even implicating the others, but just, for example, one of the tasks, you had to do a certain task, and if you did that task, you could go to a place where you can get food. And yeah, there were 2 rooms. And one of those rooms had food in it and the other one didn't. And one group was sent to one room and the other group was sent to the other room. But the people themselves didn't know that there were two rooms. So the ones that were sent to the empty room thought that their food was stolen by the other group. Nothing happened, but they believed it to be true. The manipulation by media and by the governments puts us against each other. And this is the whole COVID thing as well. We've been lied to, and now civilians are talking to civilians as if one of the group is evil because they don't want to wear a mask, and the other group really defends their position that you have to wear a mask and blah blah blah, where the other says, yeah, but wearing a mask won't do anything against aerosols, which the bloody governments themselves exclaimed a few months ago. The CDC, the RIVM, I don't know what the English version is, and I don't know what the Portuguese, but most, I mean, in Germany they said, yeah, masks won't do a thing. In France they said, yeah, mask won't really do a thing. In Italy they said, yeah, mask really won't do a thing. And now you're a sociopath for not wearing a mask. Based on what? Well, based on that people think you should. And why do these people think that? Because they've been told it. By whom? By the very same people who told them not to. I tend to be not so, how do you call it? Understanding. I think understanding is the right word. I think it's funny that my country is like the only one that don't use masks. Well, that's the funny thing. Sweden is the only country that didn't go into the madness of Corona. And it's the only country that isn't devastated as most other countries are. But then people will point out, yeah, but more people died in Sweden. Yeah, sure they did. I haven't looked into the number, by the way, William, but can you tell me how many people on average die per year in Sweden because of the flu? I never really looked into it. I assume it's not a lot higher or lower than the rest of Europe, to be honest, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, ours is between 3,500 and 6,000 a year, which is about half, which is about 2 or 3 times as much as the people who died of COVID so far.
Yeah, but I wonder how many COVID numbers are inflated in Portugal. To be honest,
one thing that's going to be funny is to see if the numbers of people dying from regular flu went down, because then you just know they counted those as COVID-19.
I haven't found any number in Europe of flu deaths of the last flu season. Not any.
Well, the last flu season officially ended in March, so they won't have numbers yet. They'll only publish the numbers next year because
no. That's not true, because normally you can get those numbers per month if you want. Or at least in the Netherlands you can, from the CDC. No, not the CDC, the RIVM. But this year I can't find the flu death numbers at all. Now, obviously, initially those flu death numbers are, how do you call it? Estimates. And flu death numbers in most of the world are always estimates, because they simply don't bother checking. Because usually it's old people that die of the flu. Why? Because of respiratory illnesses, etc., etc. Yeah, but they're also old. Well, let's write it down as flu. Sure, it makes sense. This was a huge problem when H1N1 came. What was that? 2009, I think. Can't remember the date. But yeah, that was terrible, because that one was one of the flu. One of the few flu seasons we've had in my lifetime where young people were more affected than old people. But most old people had antibodies against this flu, and the young people didn't have any antibodies against this flu. So young people actually died from this flu, where older people were more likely to survive it. So yeah, there is that. And Leprechaun, sociopathic traits linked to non-compliance with mask guideline and other COVID-19 containment measures. You know how that goes? It's a social thing. We as a society want something done, and no, I have to rephrase this. There's this saying, just because someone else jumps off a bridge, you shouldn't jump off a bridge, which made sense. But if the majority of people jump off the bridge, you not jumping off the bridge means that you are wrong. And therefore you must be a sociopath, or, well, actually a sociopath, because you're not doing what the rest of society deems normal. This, again, is something that ties in with the Milgram experiment and not the Robert Cave one, the other one. The Stanford Prison experiment, where two groups developed their own behavior based not only on authority, but also on what the others thought that was normal. So you follow along in the group because that's normal. To stand up against the group means that you have to be pretty sure of who you are. And most people are not. Sweden has a house shortening, but it was also has the most solo homes in the world. Okay. And I think people dying alone is probably the most important reason. Because if you have someone around you, and again, this has been proven, especially for old people, being alone is by far more influential in your life expectancy of old people than being with other people. And people living alone means that they have to struggle to survive. They lose the will to live in the most literal sense of the way, and they die. Which is, you know what? It's not even sad. Let's be honest. It's normal. That's we all die in the end. I really think that this might be the reason why we see the current bullshit when it comes to the death scare. It's almost as if people nowadays have forgotten that it's quite normal that people die. People are upset if you say, well, this COVID thing, well, yeah, its death number is roughly the same as the flu. No, it's not, but it factually is. Yeah, but we don't want to hear it because the flu is not bad and COVID is bad. Yeah, but as many people die from the flu as are now dying from COVID, and we don't have a vaccine for COVID. We have a vaccine for the flu, and still the numbers are the same. So which one of the two is worse, the flu or COVID? Yeah, but you're not allowed to say that because COVID is worse. Why? Well, because we got told it is so, therefore it must be so. I'm sorry, I'm ranting. What do you say, Paolo? What do you think?
Yeah, I've been more worried about the economic effects because it doesn't affect the dead; it affects the living.
Yeah.
There are several business areas who have not been allowed to go back to work, especially in show business.
Mm-hmm.
So much that there were some theater people on the news today here because they finally, after having requested this about 3 or 4 months ago, they started getting government checks to stay at home.
Brilliant.
Yeah, musicians in general, a lot of them use the summer to make money. They do small shows here and there. They can do about three or four shows a week, maybe more, going from village to village. And this year they lost all that.
Yeah.
So they needed government assistance. The people who do the carnivals, the carnival rides, they also they were also prevented from working. A lot of people who are in who do local traditional arts and crafts, they need those carnivals because they usually have a local fair where they sell their products. Now they can't because these are not products that are sold on the internet.
Yeah.
Especially because they're bought by people who don't know how to use the internet. Another thing that we noticed when children were told that they would have their classes on the internet, well, they don't have internet at home. Sometimes only one of the parents has a cell phone, and it's an old cell phone. It's not a smartphone. They can't watch videos.
Yeah.
So replacing commerce with the internet is not a solution for quite a high percentage of the population. Everybody likes to think that we're all connected and everybody knows how to use computer, but that's just not true.
No, this is true for a few countries in Europe, but just a few. And it's not even the rich countries, as people like to think. Well, in the Netherlands we are mostly connected because it's been a big deal. But even if we look in Germany, which is pretty much a rich country, there are large areas of the country that are not as connected. The same is true for France. The same is true for Italy, which are rich countries. Now, people
not even talking about people who live in the countryside. The poorer neighborhoods in the large cities, those people don't have internet access.
No, well, they don't have internet access. They usually don't have an application to use it.
Yeah.
So yeah. But pointing that out is considered unkind, unfair, name it how you want. It's madness. And in the Netherlands, they're talking about making vaccinations mandatory, not just in the Netherlands. There are lots of countries where they're talking about making vaccinations mandatory. But you won't go to jail. No, you won't. You'll just be fined. Okay, you'll just be fined. I'm not going to pay my fine. What will happen to me then? Well, yeah, you'll be jailed then.
Well, no, they don't. It's the Dankula case. They have no interest in putting you in jail because then they will have to pay for your food. They'll just go to your bank account illegally and take it out of there.
Yeah, that's also an option. But I was surprised that Scotland did it, to be honest. At the same time, I'm surprised that not more people made a stink out of it, because that's, if anything, that's a massive form of government overreach. Then again, the Scottish government would probably say, well, it's not the government that did this, it's the judges that did this. Okay, then it's judicial overreach. But yeah, people seem to be quiet, seem to accept this sort of shit.
You try to sue a judge over malpractice, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at what's his face, Count Dankula now. He's been trying to get a case going, and they simply say, "Oh no, you don't have a reason. You want to fight this? No. We don't think it's applicable. No. Yeah, you have to go somewhere else. Okay, where? I don't know. I don't care, but not here. Go on, piss off." It's. Yes, they took £800 from him because that was the fine. It's quite scary, really, when governments and judicial powers feel that they have a right to do that. But in the Netherlands, it's the Minister of Health is someone of the Christian Democratic party, and he is talking about how he's going to make certain things mandatory. But in the Netherlands, we have a system where even vaccines that we know work are not mandatory because of Christianity. The only ones that have, because they have a religious reason not to want to be vaccinated. That's because of Christianity. And now a Christian party is saying, well, yeah, we're going to force you either way. And people are blind. They're okay with it. They accept it. It must be me. I don't understand this. It doesn't make sense. Anyway. It is upsetting. It is. I have the feeling that we've said everything at least once, you know? And it's getting worse and worse and worse. In Germany, they were planning to have, I think this weekend, they were planning to have a massive demonstration in Germany to protest the corona bullshit going on. And this has been planned for quite some time, and it's been the papers were done and all the rest was in order. But I think it was today that the mayor of Berlin is saying, yeah, you know what, maybe not, because they're estimating 1 million people will come. So yeah, the mayor is like, yeah, you know what, maybe not. I'm like, okay, you know what, redub the demonstration. Don't say it's an anti-corona demonstration. Don't say it's to stop the government from abusing its power. Say it's a Black Lives Matter organization. It's allowed then, apparently.
Yeah, we're fighting for the right of the black lives afflicted by COVID-19 when they don't have COVID-19.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, the health minister of the city. Okay, thank you. I knew it was someone. But can you imagine that you have the right to peacefully assemble, but yeah, you know what? We don't like you to peacefully assemble on this topic, so piss off.
Yeah.
And people are accepting this. They're thinking like, yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah, no, it's not bad. It's not bad. Hell, this is Second World War bullshit. But we pretend that it's normal. City is called Berlin. Have a nice little city trip. Well, it's a beautiful city, yeah. I will fight for the right to party. Thank you for making me laugh, John. I could do that.
Okay. John's going off.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting close to an hour anyway. I think we don't have much more of anything interesting to say. I'd like to go on about the economics aspect, but I'd probably have to find some numbers, and a lot of that stuff is actually theoretical. So I'm not sure how much of a stream we could get out of that.
Well, the thing is that yes, it's theoretical at the moment. But if we look at the rise of unemployment in the Western world, it's massive.
We have ways of covering for that unemployment.
Yeah, but
if you're unemployed and Social Security finds you a professional course, even though you're still unemployed, you're not counting as unemployed.
Yeah.
Because you're taking a course.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. But yeah, I mean, people being unemployed means less money. The government will lose more money because of it. In a year, maybe two, we will know the real damage of this era.
Yeah. Well, let's hope they're smart enough to figure out that social security systems in most European countries won't be able to handle a second lockdown.
True, but that's okay because we can always ask foreigners to come to our country. Not that it'll make anything better, but it distracts.
Hmm. I think I'm going to invade Mali.
Mali.
They have constant coup d'états anyway, so they'll be used to it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, people talking about how we should allow Africans to come to Europe because blah 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 blah. Africa's so bad, and I was like, you know what? It's going to be a bit of a bitch to do, but maybe we should let all of the Africans come to Europe and all of the Europeans
go to Africa.
Yeah, I'm game because the land is way better than European land to grow stuff. It's a better ecological situation. I can't understand that Africa is still so far behind in a lot of things.
No, it's because of colonialism.
Yeah, because that happened 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Now they're being colonialized by China.
Yeah.
But China
their leaders have the best interest of their own peoples at heart.
Yep. I had a small talk with someone online today who is very much in favor of certain cultures. Let's call it that. And he was damn sure. I mean, it was a Dutch person. Out of all of the countries in the world, the Netherlands is probably one of the most racist countries in the world. And I'm like, did you look at China? Yeah, but China is not so bad. I mean, people in Mozambique are really happy with the Chinese influence. And I'm like, yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
Maybe. No. But if I'm looking at...
I know exactly who they're going to call for help as soon as they understand that they're not able to deal with the... with the ISIS forces that are devastating villages in northern Mozambique.
They're not going to ask China for help.
No, they're going to ask us, the evil colonizers.
Yeah, but it's even worse. China is so good, and the Netherlands is so bad. And I'm like, I can't remember when the last time was that we in the Netherlands had concentration camps for a group of people within our country that we didn't like. We actually harvest their organs and sell them, and we are the racist and China is not. But this is happening every day in China. Yeah, but. It's amazing. We really have a problem with oikophobia in Europe, to be honest. People considering their own culture the worst and all other cultures must be good. And this COVID thing makes it so much more visible. It's amazing. Anyway, I heard the reason most of Africa is behind is because they did not have horses and other similar animals. I disagree, William.
Not really. I'd say it's more they didn't have construction materials for the type of cities that we had in Europe, but they did have high concentrations of population and access to metals.
And I disagree with the not having the materials either. I mean, let's be honest. They were building bridges in Africa when in Europe we didn't even know what a bridge was. But somehow...
Those were the Egyptians.
No.
Not Wakanda.
No, not Wakanda, but Ethiopia was bridge building.
Right.
Well before the Roman time.
Yeah, and the Ethiopia is part of the Bronze Age Middle Eastern culture.
No, maybe, but they're still pretty much Africa.
Yeah. West Africa was still similar to early Middle Ages Europe when we were in the late Middle Ages.
Yeah, but that's probably because they got cut off from Europe because of Islam.
Yeah, a bit.
And Islam, after a certain point in time, Islam became regressive. So cultures stopped moving forward and they actually started moving backwards.
Yeah. Of course, the Mali Empire was big. Senegal was big.
Yeah.
Even then, in the Gambia River. If you had rivers, you had big, you had large population settlements. So that was true in the Gambia, in the mouth of the Gambia River and of the Niger River.
But if you look at a place like Senegal, it's a green country. The ground is perfectly suited for growing food. And somehow they're unable to do that. And actually Islam still works out great birthrights. Yeah, that's true. Not know if that's a good thing. But yeah, they've gone into an evolutionary regression, let's call it that. And somehow the Eastern countries and the European countries, Western countries, moved forward. Now they moved forward on a slightly different route. But if we look, for example, at Japan, by the time Europe came to Japan, Japan was still more feudal than Europe was at the time. But technologically, they weren't that far apart. Okay, they had gunpowder, but used it for something else than we did. In all fairness, we stole gunpowder from the Chinese. But I have no idea what the Middle East or Africa has contributed to the world in the last 1,000 years. I can't think of anything. But that's not the topic of the story. That could be another one. Let's call it quits for today.
Yep.
I would like to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you, Paulo, for joining me. Much appreciated. And I hope to see you all next Wednesday. You want to say something?
Nah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.